Okay, this is a very disturbing story, and I wish we didn't have yet another one of these examples, but Wisconsin billionaire Samuel Curtis Johnson III of SC Johnson fame pled guilty to sexual assault of his stepdaughter dating back to when she was as young as 12 years old, but he has been sentenced only to 4 months in jail. Now, he was originally charged with felony sexual assault of a child. He allegedly repeatedly targeted his stepdaughter for 3 years, starting when she was as young as 12 years old. His stepdaughter initially told police that Johnson was a sex addict and touched her inappropriately 15 to 20 times. She told her mom about the abuse in order to protect her younger sister, and Johnson confessed when the mother confronted him. The felony charge could have carried up to 40 years in prison, but the prosecutor had to downgrade the charges to a mere misdemeanor because both the girl and her mother wouldn't cooperate, and the entire case started to fall apart at that time, and thus we end up with just 4 months in jail as opposed to potentially up to 40 years in prison. Now, this does relate to some specifics in the legal system. When you don't have cooperation from the individuals that are involved as victims or as potential witnesses, you have a real problem with getting the same charges passed. So I totally get that, right? Based on what ultimately he pled guilty to, there was not a basis for 40 years in prison. But there are so many people who don't seem to get, Lewis, the stigma, the hostility of, imagine you're a victim of sexual assault and you know that there is huge stigma associated with it. On top of it, there's the power dynamics that this is your stepfather. On top of that, there's the dynamics that this is a billionaire heir to the SC Johnson fortune, who is well known in the community, is very well equipped legally. And then on top of that, consider that this is a kid. And we sort of have to understand that, yes, according to the letter of the law, indeed, you can't sentence someone to 40 years in prison for the misdemeanor that they ultimately pled to. But we should really be looking at the entire system because big picture, this is yet another rich person who was able to take advantage of the justice system that exists for rich people in this country and end up with 4 months in jail for what we believe to be 15 to 20 instances of sexual assault on a girl that was 12 years old.
Yeah, this story is an example of just about every problem we have with this type of thing in this country. Not just this country, really everywhere, in many countries, because, well, people are just afraid to speak out. And I can understand that. You're facing a billionaire who you are related to, or, I mean, it just seems, many times, and sadly, people think it's better and easier to just avoid confrontation and avoid all of these problems than actually addressing the issue. I think that's just a human thing.
And we had a bunch of other examples of this, Rachel. We had the wealthy heir who raped his 3-year-old daughter, was recently sentenced to probation because the judge felt that the wealthy guy wouldn't do well in prison. We had that wealthy teenager who successfully, at least initially, avoided jail time for killing 4 people drunk driving because he had what is being colloquially described as affluenza. His rich parents were so rich that they never taught him that his actions have consequences. And we have a number of examples of this.
Yeah, and I think this is also kind of reminding me of the recent case in San Francisco with that young man who sexually assaulted that girl and is kind of getting off easier. And I'm starting to think if they can kind of implement some sort of larger punishment, will that ever kind of maybe be a better deterrent than what's going on now? Because people are seeing time and time again that they can get away with these types of crimes with a small punishment. So what's their incentive to not do it?
Yeah, it creates a feedback loop where people in positions of power and privileged positions see that other people in their position are doing these things, and one way or another they don't end up really being punished. And I forget that the all-American Stanford dude is who Rachel's referring to. I feel like his name was like Brock Witherington III, or I don't remember exactly. Brock Turner, that's what it was, exactly. There is a feedback loop effect here, isn't there?
There is. Affluenza, I guess we can call it. This is part of the affluenza condition.
GameFly is sort of like Netflix for video games. They have over 8,000 new and classic games for Xbox One, Xbox 360, PS4, PS3, Wii, and a bunch of other platforms. And you can play as many games as you want for one monthly fee. And if you find some games you want to keep, You can buy them for a low used price. There's never any due dates or late fees, and our audience can get a free 30-day trial at gameflyoffer.com/TDPS. The games are shipped directly to you with return envelopes included. There's no contracts, and you can rent games through the mobile app. Get the free 30-day trial for the David Pakman Show audience and support our show by going to gameflyoffer.com/TDPS.